Record.
All right. So like I said, we assume that we have concluded the data inspection and data cleaning aspect using various Python methods and attributes. Now, the essence of dwelling much on data cleaning, while we were learning those attributes and those functions and how to use them to explore information about the given data set we want to analyze, and where there is need for us to adjust any part of it, we can as well do that. So while we're learning that, it is because it is the standards. Whenever a data analyst is given data to analyze, he or she is expected to perfect the data, structure the data in analyzable way or structure. That's the whole of that exercise is referred to as data cleaning, which is the aspect we just ended. Now we are moving into data selection. So what do we mean by data selection? These are also another set of techniques or methods which can be used to retrieve or filter data or certain record based on the defined criteria within a given data set. So these are not aggregate analysis. This is not where you are summing up values. This is simply just where you are filtering your data based on certain criteria defined. For example, if you look at this particular data sets we are working with, which is the let me call the main data. The main data is the main data should be data 2 or data 1 rather. Let's see. Yes, it's data 1. So let me call it here just to bring it closer to where we are. So let me use a note to explain what we are doing. I said introduction to data selection analysis, because these ones are not just practicing selection. Here we are using them to analyze. So that is the difference between this set of selection and the ones we did while we were just learning those techniques. So if I should call back the data 2, so data 2 comprises of the following headers. So just for me to focus on the headers, let me do data 2 dot column, just for me to call out only the headers and be able to know what and what or what are the features data 2 is made up of. So from this result now or output, we have region, we have country, we have item type, we have sales channels, we have order priority, we have order date, order ID, ship date, units sold, units price, unit costs, total revenue, total profit. So this is a good data set to work with. Now, let's go back to our slide and start relating some of these functions to that very data. Now, we are starting with what we call data concatenation in Python. Data concatenation. Now, in programming generally, the word concatenation means to join two existing things to form another one. So if we are saying that we are concatenating data, it means that we have two different data sets that we are merging. We are merging them together. So why are we learning this particular method or techniques? Because it is very possible that in your office, the company might give you a segment of a data set, not all of it first, and then later send you another copy, which is expected to be meshed together to be one data set. So instead of you sending it back to them to put it together before it can become one data frame for you to analyze, as a Python data analyst, you should be able to mesh them together, provided certain criteria or conditions are met, which we are going to find out. But let me just run through the slide. So when you concatenate your data, you create new data sets, like I just explained now. By combining data from separate distinct sources, the two data were not together. After concatenating, it becomes one. Two, you often need to combine data frames so that you can analyze data from a mixture of sources. You can combine data frames using a shared index value by calling them. So the focus is this particular function, which is PD. Remember, the PD represents pandas. So indirectly, I am telling you that this particular function is offered by a library called pandas. It's offered by a library called pandas. So that is what we are simply saying when you say pd.concat. So in other words, the concat is a sub-function coming from PD, not NumPy. Now, here we have a simple example. If you look at these two data frame that I have on my screen, they are separated at the moment, and I've labeled them data 1, data 2. Now, if you look at this data, you will agree with me that these two data sets can be one data set. It is possible that at the point this contact information were collected, the customer or the individuals involved do not supply their email, their tel, and their WhatsApp. But the company has been able to track their first name, their middle name, and then their last name. Now, let's assume that this data 1 was given to you before, and thereafter they sent you this. Now you are asked to merge them together. And if you look at it, they can be one data set because they are all about what? Contacts. This is just like an extension of this. So I brought this picture because we are not going to work with this data for us to understand what we meant by data concatenation, analyzing data from different sources, which I've read out in my slide here. I think here. No, here I've not talked about this. So let me just explain this. This is in detail. This is where I am breaking it down so that you can understand it. Now, this is the syntax. When we say syntax, we are talking about the formats. Just a minute. So when we say syntax, we are talking about formats of writing the code. So the format, like I was explaining there, you call pd.concat, And then you can see that this parenthesis bracket is for the function concat. That there is another square bracket inside the parenthesis bracket, which simply is used to select or to reference the two different data sets you want to combine as one. So like I just explained before, this is where you must have referenced the first data, and this is where you must have referenced the second data. Now, why is this as is added? This as is when you are joining data along, where you are joining data vertically. What do I mean? Let me use my annotation to explain some of this. This is the first data. This is the first data. This second one, I have an option of placing it by each side. I'm using it to explain when to use that as is and when not to use that as is. You can see that these two data, they are merged horizontally. They are merged horizontally, which means that you place the second data just afterwards the first data horizontally. They're on the same line. Now, I can as well come here and put this second one here under it. So instead of placing this horizontally, this time around is coming down vertically, using the same index or the same column. Now, if you place this data set under this very one, you are going to have a lot of missing values generated. Why? Because there will not be value for some. The data will not be well aligned. Now, but if you place it like this, it will go well because this is coming as a different header and is going to drop the whole of this. It's not going to use this again because it's not standing in its own separate space. So indirectly is using the correct or the first data space. But if you put it under, it will maintain its own index number. So we have two ways of concatenating. It's either you concatenate the data horizontally, which is the one I explained for us, or you concatenate it vertically. Now, I've said that to explain the next action so that you will understand what I will be doing. Now, let's look at this. This is where I have concatenated the two different data sets and they have become one. Now, because I concatenated, look at the emphasis here, concatenated based on row, which is the same line horizontally, like I just explained with the diagram now. Because I concatenated it horizontally, that is all, I placed the second data immediately after the first data on the same line. That is what makes it row or horizontally. That is why I added as is equals to 1. That as is equals to 1 is a constant attribute. There is no as is equals to 2. There is no as is equals to 3. It must be as is equals to 1. Which tells Python, if you check the note here, there's a place where I explain it. Use pd.concat method on the object. The object in this case is the data set itself. The as is 1 argument tells Python the as is equals to 1 argument tells Python to concatenate the data frame by adding the column. See it now, that is joining the row index value. What is the index value? Like I just explained now. The index value are this number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So once you join like this, definitely it will join the index value. So you can see that the second data has dropped its index value, and we only have the second data index value. So this is the center. Now, taking note of the centers, we will now go to our data set and see how we can replicate this. So let me quickly take this Control-C and then come back to our data set. So the most important thing is, after knowing these various techniques, it is important you know when to relate them and the kind of analysis question you should involve them for. For example, I have called out this header for me to know what exactly I can do with this data. And we have studied the header, we have region, we have country, we have order. Now, we are going to apply some technique. Why? Because if you look at this, I want to pay attention here. If you look at this, I used two different data. This is one, this is two. So what I am going to do now is to apply most of those selection techniques that we learned randomly to pull out a particular section from this whole data and save it as data set one, pull out another section from this same data and save it as data set two. Then before, I will now come here and say, I want to execute this command. So I will have prepared these two data sets, but if I have done that, you will not learn the techniques I want to use now. So the first thing I'm going to do, let me highlight the task. What exactly as a data analyst I am asked to do? Let me put it here. So the task is, as a data analyst, trying to put it the way it can be put to you in your workspace. As a data analyst, comma, select region. Let me quote those ones I'm referring to. Select region and country from the sales, from the Amazon sales data. After this, then, let me break it so that we can be seeing it. Then, store the outcome in a new data frame. A new data frame. So this is task one. Let me refer to it as task one. Then task two. Task two is select from the same Amazon data frame. Amazon data set. Select only total. Select only total profit and also store in a new data frame. That is a second task. Then the last task, which is task 3, therefore, concatenate. So you can see the two selected data frame. So this is what you are asked to do. Now, there might be reason why the company want to pick out region and country and only what? Total profit. The reason might be, as a data analyst, given this whole data to analyze, you must have identified that all your analysis are channeled to region, country, and this. So why carrying all this along? So to you, they might just be acting as distraction. So what you want to do so that you will focus on what matter. That is why you are applying this selection technique to call them out and then also store them in different data frame and be able to perform your analysis. Now, you will now begin to see the application of some of those selection techniques we have learned before now. Now, the first question is what I want to answer. So, tax one says that we should select only 2 headers. That is, from the whole of this data set, we want only what? Headers, region and country to be stored as our data set 1. So what I'm going to do to apply that, this is solution. So task 1 solution. So the syntax will simply be, I will just create, let's say what, data set 1. Let's say data set 1, then equals to. Now, I will call the current data set, which is data 2. Then I will select with this square bracket, put another square bracket because we are selecting 2 headers at the same time in that question. Because the question says we should select region and country. So even I'm selecting just one, there wouldn't have a need for the second word, square bracket. Now, they are strings, so I will reference them as string. So thank God we have called out the header. So just copy and paste. Then while you are still inside the second bracket, call the next header, which is country. Control C, and you also come here and paste. So that is also, if I run it now, that has been selected and stored in data 1. So if I want to see it, to view the outcome of the selection you just did now, just simply call data set 1, and then you run it. So you have them here. So these are the 2 data sets. So if I want country to come before region, then I will just switch the order here. Okay, so I believe that is clear. Let me get the rest one before I proceed. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Very clear, sir.
Yeah. It's clear.
All right, welcome, Mr. Emmanuel.
Good morning, sir.
All right, so let's answer the second question. The second question, let me copy it since we are going far from it a little now. I hope I should be able to select it to the end. So the second question is for us to, from the same Amazon data set, select only total. So in this case, we are selecting only total profit. So I will simply write syntax in case you want to make your note later. Syntax. So I will say data set 2. Data set 2 is equals to data 2 select, was it data 2? Let me check from what data 2. From data 2, select string, select this, Control C, and then paste. So I use just only one because I use just only one square bracket because I am referencing only one header. So now, as usual, to see my result, simply type what? Data 2, data set 2, and then run it. So we have them selected and stored. So we have answered task 1 and task 2, but task 3 is actually what led to this whole stuff, which is what we are considering as this. So this is the point where you invoke this now. Because what I've been doing is to create this sub data set from the main data set so that I can have my data set 1 and my data set 2. So now that I have my data ready, so I can go ahead and answer task 3. So task 3 says that, therefore, I should merge the two of them together. What are the data I am merging? Data 1, which comprises region and country. Data 2, which has only what? Profit. So I'm to merge them together. So task 3 solution. Task 3 solution is this. So like I showed us there, now remember we said that data concatenation means you are bringing, it's not only 2, you can actually join, no, you can join 3, but you have to maintain the format. Now, we are bringing different data from different sources and we are merging them to become a new data frame. So there could be a reason for that, for your analysis. So now, I'm going to specify the name of so I will now say what? Final underscore data. You can give it any descriptive name, any name that will help you to understand what you are actually representing with that name. Now, I will now do what? PD, remember, PD dot concat, you are not to spell it in full. Then open this, then put the selection bracket because you want to reference those two data sets, data set 1, data set 2. You want to select them. So, and you are to just call the name. You don't have to put them in string because they are valid variable. So we just say data set 1. Then I will just put comma. I will say data set 2. Now, if I run it like this, it means that I am putting the second data under the first data, like I illustrated with my diagram. Let's run it now so that you see what happened. So if I want to see the value, just type Fi and tap tab 2 times. It will call out the name of the variable instead of you typing it in full. So if you run it now, look at this. You have concatenated, but you see what happened now. This is not a good job. What happened here is that other structure that I explained that you are placing. This is vertical concatenation instead of horizontal. So for me to make it concatenated horizontally, I will just come after the square bracket, put comma, and say what? As is. Am I sure my as is spelling is correct? Okay. As is, let me confirm that. Trying to, I think this one is correct. So as is equals to 1. So if I run this now, I should be able to My axis is still not correct. Noting AS Y. Wait.
Yeah, it's correct, sir. The spelling is correct.
It's correct now, right?
It's correct.
So Y.
Yes,
It's
sir.
X.
It's correct.
Okay, so let's see. So axis equals to 1. Okay, so we got it. So this is it. You can see total profits is now joined horizontally. So you can see that we no longer have the missing value. Those NAS that we generated before has gone because we have placed the data in a proper structure. So I believe this is clear, and I also believe that with all that I've explained the concept of what data concatenation, and then so this is just like the result we have there now. This is where I was talking about no axis. That means that you are placing the data on the same column. So this is the result we got. So this is another, we have done this under data and other data cleaning. This is dropping. This is where you are deleting column. So our next topic will now be what? Data addition. But before that, I want us to perform this. I believe we all have the data. I want us to perform this as your classwork. This particular one we just did now. Do you have the Amazon data there with you? Check. Do we all have it?
No, no, sir, I don't have the data, but I only have other data, but not Amazon data. I don't have this particular data.
Okay, Mr. Emmanuel, do you have it?
What I have, Amazon sales data, but it doesn't have country region. It has
Okay.
total
Okay.
country here.
Okay. So what will happen now is that just pick the data you have, and you should be able to construct your tax from it, just like I did now. So you might mention different header, but at the end of the day, you'll be asked to share your screen, and then I'll check if you have actually applied it correctly. So you can start now. I would love to, somebody should share his screen so that we'll also be busy. So I'll be able to stay on someone's screen while that is going on. I believe we all join with our laptops. Let me confirm that first. We all join with our
No,
laptops.
Yes, yes,
no,
sir.
I'm joining with my phone.
Okay, so Mr. Vitri, then share your
Sir.
screen while you are working. Let's be seeing what you are doing.
All right, sir.
I thought you have loaded the Anaconda, everything ready before now.
Yes, I've loaded it before, but it's trying to write a Jupyter notebook is not.
Okay. So if it will take time, I will just continue and then go and do it as an assignment. Let me just wait.
Still loading.
Okay, so I think this will waste our time. Let's continue. Please, you cannot share your screen. Go and do it as an assignment so that I can cover other topics.
Yes.
All right, so we are looking at another data selection technique. So that's the end of that concatenation. Now we still have another alternative, because most of these things have different ways of doing them. So when you are learning them, any one that is available, you try as much as possible to learn it. So we also have what we call data addition. Data addition. Now the emphasis here is on another function, not concat. Here we are using join, which is another way of saying the same thing that we have done, joining two data sets, but the code syntax is different. Okay, so here you are introducing a function called data frame. You are joining that function with another function called join before you supply your various data sets. Now, thank God that we have already secured our two different data sets. So all we need to do is to still use the same data set and verticalize this particular method. So you can use .join method to join two data sources into one. The join method works by joining the two sources of their rows index value. So this is the syntax here. So the comp is a variable name, data frame dot join. Then these are the two different data sets. One is combined, the other one is combined two. So this is where I broke it down for proper understanding, that this comp is new data variable, that is where the output will be stored. And then this is a function. Both of them, they are function. This is your first data set, and this is your second data set. So quickly for us to go and apply it in this data we are working with. So I will just use comment to explain also here. So this is application of, this is the application of join, application of data frame dot join function for data selection analysis. For this data selection analysis. Now, what is the task? The task is using the .join function, merge data set 1 and data set 2, since we have already prepared our data set. So the new, I will say, okay, let's say joined equals to, joined equals to, the data frame, the D must be capital letter, the F must be capital letter. Please take note of that. Dot join, the function itself, then you supply data set 1, then comma, data set 2. So once you run it, you get your output. So as usual, to view the outcome, I will simply call join. So I will just type J-O and press tab. It will display all the variables. I will just pick this one. I actually want it to come down and then execute. So you can see we have achieved exactly what we achieved with the concat. So these two options are available for you whenever you want to perform this kind of selection. So what is the difference? The difference is clear. We did not use as is here in the case of join. So I think to me, the join is easier. But the only thing is that remember that if you are typing your data frame, make sure that the D is capital letter and the F is capital letter. If you try not to obey that rule, you will get an error. Is that clear? Please let me get a response before I proceed. Is that clear?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, sir. It's very clear, sir.
All right. Thank you. All right. So let's go back to the slide and look at other. So we are looking at data sorting. So sorting is another analysis that can be done under data selection. As we all know from Excel, to sort simply means to rearrange your data either in ascending or descending order. There are a lot of analysis questions that can be answered with the sort. For example, if I am asked, let me just call data 2 here. If I am asked to display the top 10 country, in this data set. So if I sort this data in descending order rather, I am going to easily identify that. That is, if I am sorting the whole of this data by specifying my criteria for the sorting as country, I am going to end up having the top 10 or the top country display. Now, that is the question you can also answer with the sort. So let's quickly study the syntax of this function before we go for the application. We have object underscore name, which is expected to be the name of your data. So this will be replaced with data2 dot sort underscore values. The value must have S. Now, the function itself is the one that owns this parenthesis bracket. So what are the inputs? What are the data we are giving to the function to be executed? We have to supply our index. This is an attribute. By is an attribute that give or provide more information about the function itself. So what is this attribute meant for? This attribute is where you select the particular header that will be used as the criteria for the sorting. You can see it here. Here, I selected email. So I was working with that, those two data sets that I concatenated. But the condition will change now because we are dealing with different data. But I just want us to understand what we are doing at this point. So the index is where you supply which of the column in your data set that will determine the sorting. That is what you supply here. Now, after that, we have another attribute called ascending. Now, this ascending is an attribute that is used to define the order, whether you should arrange it in ascending order or descending order. Now, the value you put here, if you put true, there are only two values you can put here, which are called computer Boolean value, such as true or false. Now, if you put false here, is ascending. Please don't mind this label. I made mistake here. I'm supposed to say for ascending instead of what? So I use descending instead of ascending. So which means that if you put false here, it will arrange your record based on the criteria you specify here in ascending order. If you put true here, this place you are having a false. If you put true there, it will also sort the header, the values in the header you specify here as your criteria in descending order. So if you read through this, you get more information about how to apply this particular function. So let's go to our data set and see how we can use it to answer valid question. So let's say we have it this way. Let me convert this to comment for now. So here, let's look at what kind of analysis we can be asked to actually answer with this. So let's assume that the task given to us is sort the entire Amazon data frame or data set by country. Let's say this is what we are asked to do. It's a question. So our intention is that it's going to answer analysis question for us. That will help us to identify by country in ascending order. So probably we have some insights we want to derive from that. So the syntax will now be data. Now, the sorted copy, remember, always work with that mindset as a data analyst. The sorted copy, the output, where will it be stored? Because it should be different from the old one that is not sorted according to the order you are defining. So I will just say, okay, let me use a descriptive name, sorted copy underscore copy. I will say equals to. Now, the name of the data I want to sort by country is data2. Then concatenate it with sort underscore values, then open your bracket, then by equals to select is a string by country. So let's check the header. Let's see how it's written. Okay, so I'll copy it here. Control C. And paste here by country. So I have to define the order. This axis, like I said, is this ascending is constant. You don't say because you want to sort descending, you not change it to descending. It's a constant attribute. So what control the order is what you put there as a value. And when you are entering the false or the true, please, the first letter must be in capital letter. First letter. So if I start with first, so why are you not quoting it, sir? I thought you taught us that in programming, strings should always be quoted. Why we are not quoting because it's a Boolean. Boolean is a programming data type which has only two values, true or false. They are already built in the program. So not until you supply true variable. So now if I run this now, I get my result since I'm able to see my value. So I want to see it. I will just type SO and then double tap to bring out the list of variables stored with letter SO. So I'll pick this. This is the one we are analyzing. And then you just simply run it. Now, how do I confirm? Now, you just focus on the country column and check. You see that all the values there will have been sorted according to your order. This is descending. I told us that means my label was correct or what? Let's check because this is descending. So it's possible that my label was correct. Okay, I said false is what? Descending, which means my label was actually correct. If it is not descending, you shouldn't be seeing Zambia as Z. Now, just to verify, let's change here to true. Let's change here to true and run it also. You shouldn't be seeing Zambia now. You should be seeing another, you can see it now, Albania. So this means that you have successfully sorted this column. Your focus should be on the column that will help you to generate your insight. If the insight is channeled or focused on item type, then that should be your buy. That is what you put here, because that is where you actually want to get your insight from, what you are going to present to your stakeholder. That after my analysis, I discovered that I discovered that okay, so let's look for it could be a product. It could be a product. So with this, what we have been able to discover is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have about 5 countries that start with letter E. So in case I wanted to know. So let's say all these countries are grouped in a particular geographical location, and you want to know how many of them. So there are a lot of insights you should be able to detect as a data analyst after performing the sorting operation. So I want to also verify if it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Emmanuel, is that
Yeah,
clear?
I can copy it. Yeah, yeah.
So the next slide, how to use label index to select rows. What was that trying to? Okay, we have done all this. We've done this method. In fact, I use it to assemble those two data sets. So we've done that. Then here, I'm not going to talk about this because it makes no sense, but just for you to understand. So while you are practicing, you can replicate this code, but let me just explain it. I don't want to waste my time doing that. Now, what I was trying to picture here is that supposing you go for an interview and they are not able to provide you a data set to work with, and they ask you to perform some analysis. So you can actually use Python to generate random numbers. Then you can start, practicing or demonstrating your data analysis skill right there. So this NP, as we all know, represents a library called NumPy. The random is a sub-function under it. Then the seed is another sub-function under it, which generates the number. So if I remove 25, you can try that when you are relating this in your assignment. After running it with 25, that will have generated some value. Just be changing this value, change it to 10 and run again. You see that each time you impute a different value, it will be generating different number. In other words, this .seed is the one generating the random number with the help of this random as a function. Now, pros, this is where I want to save the value that it will have generated into a valid variable in Python called pros. Is a variable name. Data frame is a function. Under it, in other, you want the data to be framed, just like the way you have it displayed. Then, what are the parameters you are giving to the data frame? You are supplying the numpy.random.ran n. Now, this rand n is another function. Reshape is another function. This rand n is the one that we frame the data in, is one that is generating the total number of what the value is on the width and the height you must have defined with what reshape. So this reshape that have 6 by 6 actually mean, if you count now, this is 1 column, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then if you count the row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 6 by 6 what table. So if, for example, I change here to 24, so here will now be what? Can anybody respond? Because as we are changing here, this place you also what align so that the data can be properly framed. If I change here to 25 times 5, we give us like I'm asking, if I change here to 24, what will this play become? Can one of you unmute and respond, just to understand if you are getting it?
That should be 4 by 6.
Good. So the total numbers you are targeting, then you have to also define the frame. That's how they will be arranged horizontally and vertically. So that is what I was trying to achieve there. So I don't want to waste my time. So we'll now look at data slicing. Now, actually, if you are also going to apply this very one because you will be having the data. Now, data slicing actually mean, now remember that we are selecting column. We are selecting column the other time. We called out total profit, we called out region and country. That is you selecting. Let me use the word slicing column. Now, how do you slice record? Using their index, knowing that the first one is at index 0, the second one is at index 1. So what I did here now is that I selected record at index 1, which is not the 0, to record at index 3. So once you have created this data set, you run this function, you get this kind of results. So, but I want to explain what I'm doing here. Now, from this data, I wanted to take this, I wanted to extract this from 1 to 3. Just like the way we were pulling out column. So this data slicing is just like you are also pulling out record. That is horizontally. So when you say you are slicing from 1 to 3, and it outputted only 2, the reason is that the slicer is just like a cutlass. The last one that is resting on will be destroyed. So when we said 1 to 3, it will cut on 3 and give you only 1 and 2. That is what happened here. If I want to capture 1 to 3, then I will specify here 1 to 4 so that it will cut number 4 and end up at putting 1, 2, 3. If I want to stop at 6, then I will put what? 1 to 7. It will cut number 7 and give me 1 to 6. So always know that each time you are slicing, the very last one will not be displayed. So it is assumed that the cutlass or the slicer must have destroyed it. Now, this one also we have explained. This is name of data set, just like you doing something like this, just like you saying data to select country. Select country. This is what I'm actually trying to explain here. We have done that. That's why I'm skipping it. We have done that already. You can confirm that. Now, this is where we are now, which is using a known Python function to select, because all the selection we have been doing since, they are more of techniques, applying techniques and some defined function. Now, supposing we are asked to use a Python defined function to perform what we call filtering, which is another phase of data analysis, using log and unlog. The two words here, they are not acronym. This is just how you have to know them. So they're nothing like location, whatever. You just know them as log and ilog. So as a data analyst, is for you to know what can be achieved with log and what can be achieved with ilog. So in doing that, I have explained them. Let's look at their definition first, so that you know at what point I can use log and at what point I can use ilog. Now, log method is a label-based approach that allows the selection of rows and columns by taking in the labels, that is, rows and column names. This one I just did now. If I ask us, how did I select this? This is just like an alternative to the log method, because I take in the column label name and use it to pull out what? The values. That is what we are saying. But that one is just like you are using a logic, because if I ask us now, which function do you use to pull out this? No function. But if I want to achieve something like this using a Python known function, log is the best, because you are calling out certain value based on their attribute word name, which is now called what? The label. Now, ilog method is an integer-based approach that allows the selection of rows and columns by specifying the numerical index number, the selector. Now, look at the example here. That's the reason why I actually skip this other data. Okay, because this method cannot be applied on a data set. If you select data set without using ilog, if you slice like this, the way you slice here now, it won't work. It won't work, except if Python has upgraded. Let's go and try it, because at times they change some of these things as people are complaining. So let's just say we want to try our best. Data 2, from data 2, we are selecting from 1, 2. So we are using index number now, which means, remember some time ago, I told us that when you have an array of elements or properties in a container, the first one in programming is usually referred to as 0. So in programming, that is why you see most of the value here, good. You can see instead of labeling this first record as 1, it labeled it what? 0. In programming, that is how it is. This is 1, but to the program, it is 0. Then the second one is what? 1. And I've explained before now, why is this so? It is like that because you counted nothing before that first one. That's why it's labeled as 0. Now, why is this one 1? Because you counted 1 record before the 1. Why is this one 2? Because you counted to 1, 2 before you get to 2. It labeled this one 3 because you counted 3 items before you get to what? 3. So that is the idea behind the programming languages seeing the first value as 0. That is the concept. So just take note of that. Now, if I run it now, I want to see if Python must have upgraded in a way that when we want to slice, it can slice without using ilog. Wow, so you can see that it works. Perfect, that's why it's good. You try it. So there might not be reason for you to use ilog, because this is what have just happened. But when we started it, it wasn't showing. Let me put like 10 here. If I put 10 here, run it, wow. So you can see that what is able to select what only 10 record from the entire data set. But let's still go and apply the ilog method, even though we have been able to sort it out. So this is the label base. This is the log method. You can see the syntax here. The syntax here is the name of the data set, dot log, and then you select the square bracket. We are supposed to have the closing square bracket here. We're supposed to have the closing square bracket here. Now you quote the header because it's label based. So let's just go there and still apply it, despite that Python has updated that particular syntax. So let's say we have it here. So now the pros become our data 2. Then we will now concatenate it with what? The log, and then select then remember that this column must be there, then command, that's the syntax, before you call your heading. So let's say I'm calling country. So if I run it now, so you can see it. So I've been able to what? To call out what? Just this. So if I put dot reset underscore index, I want to see, though it will give me another number, but it will put it in a proper. Okay, so there's no need because we have number already. So admin, you select data set and it does not generate number 1, number 2. You just add what? This. And then once you add it, then it will add number and help you to display it in a proper structure. So that is for log, which I said is the label base. Now this is ilog, which we just discovered that Python now have logical syntax to implement. Now ilog, you are just using numbers. That is what you are recognizing, that each of those columns has numerical positioning representation. And that is what we are doing here. When you say 0 to this, so if I could just save our time, we are rounding up. So here I'm applying application of iLog method, application of iLog method. So if I do it, so here if I call data2.ilog and I call the bracket the same thing, then put comma here. So if I say 0, 0 to 20 to call out the first 20, so you can see it. So you now have this as an alternative. It's either you do it directly here. To me, this one, since this one is working, this one is faster now. This one is, the code is minimal here instead of writing a whole lot of this. So these are options that we have under log and iLog. So in our next class, we will continue with filter data. Somebody should write it down so that we'll not be looking for where we stop. Look at filtering data. So this is another concept entirely, which is going to answer more valid analysis question. Because what we have done so far is just displaying different techniques on how to select certain value from a given data set. But here we're going to answer more real analysis questions that have to do with selection or focusing on filtering. So any question, please? Any question?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Okay.
In this log and iLog method, is it possible to arrange in ascending or descending order? Because this one now, when we are using it, we didn't show that attribute.
So are you talking about ascending them? They have already been arranged. You can see it here now. In ascending, you are dealing with record, except you do sorting. That's where sorting comes in.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorting has answered that your question. All right. So if there's no question, we draw the curtain here. So your assignment is to go and replicate the same thing. What I wanted us to do in the class that we couldn't do, get a different data set, construct your relative question according to what we did. When you go through the video, if you are not working with this particular data, the place of country can be another important header you have in that data set. Just make sure that you run through everything that we have done, because in the next class we are going to start from data filtering. We're going to start with this. All right. Have a nice day, sir. Nice weekend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.